Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Melanie Myles. She is the founder of Arctic Butterfly Coaching and Consulting. She helps women in STEM take control of their careers via the GRACE framework. So I'm really keen to learn more about how an engineer got into coaching and her life in industry and the ways in which speaking has benefited her so far. So welcome to Teach the Geek interviews, Melanie.
Thanks for having me, Neil.
So from the bit of research I did on you, I saw that you studied mechanical engineering. So what was the motivation to do that?
So I always grew up taking things apart, and to my mother's dismay, I would take apart anything I could get my hands on. And she, and then later a counselor, suggested to me that I should be an engineer. And so I'm just interested in how things work, particularly if they've got moving parts and pieces. As you know, there's lots of different kinds of engineering, but the mechanical kind of stood out to me because of all the moving parts and pieces and how they work together.
I commend you for having a good reason as to why you got into engineering, Melanie. I used to lie about why I got into it because I was a bit
Well,
embarrassed.
why did you look, what did you say?
I used to say that I used to take things apart, but I never took anything apart. My mother was not that forgiving. No, I became an engineer because my father said I should become an engineer. And after high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so engineering it was.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard that story many times. But yeah, it was a natural inclination to take things apart. And then my mother did suggest it. So I did have some parental steering there that I finally listened to. So wouldn't regret it. It was one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Yeah, I mean, I don't regret it either. It worked out pretty well. So you get this degree in mechanical engineering. What kind of work did you do in industry?
So oil and gas, which I'm still in. I'm the director of operations for Alyeska Pipeline, and I have the Arctic Butterfly coaching and consulting that I do as well. So I started at an oil and gas and refining company in the Midwest and started doing project work, really, designing small items on the refinery. And from that, went into leadership. And then from there, well, I'm still in leadership, but part of why I do the Arctic coaching is to help folks improve their presence, improve their leadership skills, improve their how they show up in a room. And so that's kind of why what you're doing in your space very much aligns with what I help my clients with, which is how to show up for the roles that they want. And if they want to be in leadership, there's certain things you need to be able to do. And speaking effectively is one of those things, carrying, getting your point across and communicating what it is that you want to do. Because just being technically strong doesn't mean that your idea is going to win out unless you can convey that and tell the story behind why what you put together should be the thing that moves forward.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that, Melanie. I remember maybe about a year or two ago, I was having a conversation with a woman. She's in her 70s now, but she's a patent attorney. But before that, she was an engineer. And she was telling me back when she was an engineer, she thought that if she just did good work, people would notice, but that never happened. And she also noticed that the people who tended to move up within organizations were the ones who spoke. But then she also said that they were brown nosing, that they were bragging. And I just remember thinking to myself, I mean, were they, or were they just advocating for themselves? I mean, is it a thin line, or do you think some people just see it as if you talk about yourself that you're a braggart?
Well, I think that is a common misconception. I think a lot of people are don't know the difference between bragging and advocating. And I would absolutely agree that those people who can advocate for themselves, who can shine a light on the good work that they're doing, visibility is hugely important in getting to where you want to be. And if you want to move up in the ranks, you have to be able to do that. And so there's a way to do it that is genuine and authentic and is not just brown nosing. So you have to figure out how to do it tactfully, but you have to advocate for yourself because nobody really else is going to do it. And so it's important that you figure out where that line is for yourself so that you can get to where you want to be.
Another thing when I was having that conversation with that woman, I was thinking to myself, why do you think that other people are paying attention to what you're doing? There are many people that work here. So, I mean, you think everybody's just focused on you? Isn't that rather self-centered?
Yeah,
You
we
know?
definitely think that people are thinking about us way more than they actually are.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I just remember that being a very interesting conversation I had with that woman. And I also remember thinking to myself, I hope you still don't think that. I mean, you're my mom's age. I hope you would have learned something since then.
Let's hope not.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay. So at some point you decide to form Arctic Butterfly. Was the idea for forming it coming from your own experience? I'm curious as to the motivation for starting it.
It was. So I had some ex being in corporate America, there are just things that you have to understand and deal with. And there was a point where I was looking for a career coach, and for various reasons, just kind of trying to help navigate the corporate environment, really. And when I was looking, I could not find coaches that looked like me. And because one of the things in coaching is being able to have that shared experience. It's not necessary, not required, but with some of the issues that I was dealing with, I found it very important to find someone that looked like me, who could understand where I was at in my journey, who had similar background, engineer, because we think a little bit differently than the average bear. And so that was important to me. Having it be a person of color was important to me. And I couldn't find one at the time. And actually, a friend suggested to me that, solve the problem that I had. And that is how Arctic Butterfly coaching started. And then I found that just like with mechanical engineering and becoming an engineer, that I was already doing those things. I already had a natural aptitude. Part of my leadership role that I enjoy the most is mentoring and coaching and helping people find their brilliance and their gift, because I believe everybody has one. And so it kind of just made sense to me. Actually, I was having a conversation with a coach, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm looking for my next thing because I'm kind of unsettled with where I was at, doing well. I mean, I've always done well, but I was looking for that next thing, how I can be of service. And so that conversation and some of that natural inclination is what led to Arctic Butterfly.
Got it. And so for the people that you work with, what type of issues do they typically come to you with?
Well, so my target audience is Black women in STEM, so they're engineers and scientists and technical people. One of the kind of primary ones is going from an individual contributor to a leadership role. So often, when you're an individual contributor, you're technically gifted, you've mastered your craft, and you know the numbers, right? You know your thing. But when you become a people leader, there are different things that you have to put into play that we're not often taught as part of our engineering curriculum. And so that is a big part of it, is that transition from individual contributor to technical people leader. And then there's also being a Black woman in STEM or being a minority. There are additional headwinds that you have that are working against you, right? Bias, microaggressions. And so it's coming up with strategies to deal with those kinds of things in the corporate environment that you're in, or whatever environment that you're in. Most of the women I coach are in a corporate setting. So those are pretty typical problems. And so people come looking for clarity in how do I move through this situation or how do I get to where I want to be. And then a bit of confidence, because sometimes when you're in these environments and you're the one of, you might be the only one. Sometimes you need a bit of validation or or a sanity check where it's like, okay, this happened to me. Is it me or is it the environment? And what can I do about it? And so those are often a lot of the issues that we talk about. And it's not always issues. I think coaching is also oftentimes represented as something you do when you're trying to fix something, when an individual is struggling to perform. But I think the smart thing is to have a coach on the team so you prevent those kinds of issues from happening. And I think that's part of your support network that you need to have mentors, sponsors, coaches, friends. So those are a lot of things that I talk about with my clients.
You mentioned that there are instances in which people have faced certain situations and you're working with them to figure out whether it was them or the environment.
Mhm.
Has there ever been instances where you at least based on your judgment, it was them? And if so, how did they deal with you saying that?
Well, yes, there's been instances like that, and you say it gently, but it's really more them becoming aware of how they're engaging with the world and if that is how they want to engage. So sometimes we need adjustment. I mean, that's the whole getting better every day and continuous improvement and personal professional development. So gently is how you go about it. And then it's really about what outcome an interaction. How do you want to leave the people that you're dealing with? How do you want them to feel when you walk away? And if they're feeling a different way than what you're expecting, then you have to make some adjustment. And so sometimes, and for various reasons, and so we work through where they're at, how they're interacting with the world, if they're okay with that interaction. And then if not, we talk about ways to improve or change that.
I've heard that with coaching, the goal of it is to ask questions so that people come to their own answers. But I've also heard from other coaches that say that they offer solutions to issues that people have. Where do you fall when it comes to the purpose of coaching?
I am more of the latter. Because of my experience, there's a lot, and with the clients that I deal with, there's a lot of things that I've gone through myself that I've coached or led my team members through. So it's definitely more focused on the individual and asking questions and trying to understand where they're trying to get to. And then it's providing some options and opportunity to enlighten their thinking. So you can't tell people necessarily what to do, but you can definitely give them some suggestions and things that they need to think about and reflections and things like that. So I've kind of fallen between, I would say, I wouldn't say I'm a strict by the book coach. I mentor, I provide when I can, even some sponsorship depending on where that individual is trying to get to or if they're wanting to change or get involved in a different group or organization. So if I can make some introductions, I will do that. So that's a bit outside of the traditional coaching, but I'm gonna lend my experience and what I can to the conversation.
See, that's to me sounds useful, Melanie. Because when I hear people talk about it, I just keep asking questions and people come to their own answers. I'm just thinking to myself, man, I could have asked these questions my damn self. I came to you.
Exactly.
I came to
Right?
you. Can you give me some suggestions? I'm stuck because I don't know what to do right now. If
Yeah.
Give me some suggestions, damn it.
Exactly. You need to shake some things loose a little bit, and sometimes you need an honest and frank conversation to help you do that. And so, yeah, that's definitely I'm the same way. I come to you because I need a different perspective, and so yeah, that's how I choose to lean in.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a smart way to lead in, and I'm sure your clients think so too. If not, they wouldn't be your clients after all. Right?
That's true.
So, Melanie, when I first started the podcast and YouTube channel, it has to do, and it still does, with the issues that people with technical backgrounds may have in
Mhm.
communicating with others, especially when they're non-technical people. I mean, it all started with my own struggles having to give presentations in front of management when I worked as an engineer, a product development engineer. And so I'm always really curious to hear from other people that have these technical backgrounds about their speaking journey. So I'm curious, when it comes to speaking, is that
Mhm.
something you've always been good at? And if not, what did you do to get better at it?
No, I wouldn't say I've always been good at it, or at least in my perception. So when I was actually younger in high school, I would avoid, like if they said that you're going to have to give a presentation in class, the next day, I would be sick. I mean, I would do everything in my power not to have to stand up in front of a classroom and say anything. So I was, had an aversion to it like most people do, speaking. What kind of changed for me, and I would say that was the way all the way through college, but I got an internship and I ended up working for this company as well. But I got an internship, and one of the things that they do is they put us in a week-long presentation class. And my worst fears were realized in that class, but it was also one of the best things I think for my career because I use the things that I learned in that class constantly. A couple of things that happened in that class was one, you had to get they videoed us speaking, and it was like any topic you want, just talk about it for a minute, and they recorded us. And so then you had to watch your recording. And what that did though, one, you could see all of the anxious things that people do when they're speaking. And the goal is not to do those, right? Because they're a distraction when you're in front of people. If you're fidgeting or some of the people in class would jiggle the coins in their pocket because out of nervousness. And so that was one of the things is knowing what your nervous cues are and then trying to come up with things to replace those nervous cues. Because you're going to get nervous. I still get nervous when I am in front of people. I think most people do. That was one of the things that I carry with me. And so now I am more conscious about jiggling, not doing things like that, those little nervous things. The other thing that was mentioned in the class that really has stuck with me is even when it's technical people and you're presenting, especially to a room of other technical people, there's a right answer most of the time. The numbers add up to what they're supposed to be. And so the fear is that you got something wrong. And someone in that room is going to recognize that you didn't do the math right or find some error, right? But one of the things that the person that was presenting this class had said to me that's really stuck is that no one knows your experience with the material like you do. And even if you do get some challenge, prepare for it and then be receptive to it. So if you actually got something wrong and someone pointed it out, you say, thank you for that. I'll go back and take a look at that. And so there's ways to practice and prepare for having that conversation. And then the other thing is preparation. You just got to practice, know your stuff. And I think you need to know it and not read it. So you need to be able to, it needs to become part of you so that you can just have a conversation about it. But that 1 week class, which was a bit of torture as I was going through it, but it's been some of the best training I've ever had in my career. And I use it every day and I help other people. And I share those kind of tips that I've learned with other people to help them kind of power through their speaking.
Last month, I attended a conference, a technical conference, and I noticed that a lot of the speakers read slides. I just
Yeah.
remember thinking to myself, man, I could read too. mean, I don't need you to talk. If I can read and you can read, that's wonderful. We can read. But this is a presentation. I would have hoped that you're going to say things that weren't on a slide, and it'll force me to then listen to you as opposed to read the slide that's there. I mean, I could have read this late. I could have read this later. I could have been doing other things with this time. I just think a lot of us we just use having a whole bunch of text on a slide as a crutch, so we don't forget something that we wanted to say. And I think us technical people are guilty of that for sure. And then, another point that you made about wanting to be right. I think that's another reason why some of us may even shy away from giving presentations because we don't want to be called out in front of other people, especially if there's decision makers in that audience. And now people are looking at you thinking, well, maybe this person doesn't know what we thought they knew. So that's an issue too. I wrote an article about that last year, why technical people may shy away from giving presentations. And that was one of the reasons is fear of
Hmm.
being called out for being wrong on something they said.
Right? But you always have an opportunity to adjust. But I agree. I think a fatal flaw is reading the material off of the slides. And I also think we don't the even though that there might be some really deep and technical research and statistical analyses and all these things that we do, particularly when we're in a corporate environment, uh, most people don't want to hear all that, particularly decision makers. They want you to get to the point, ask what you need, and it's more about a story. You need to tell the story of what the data says, not give me the nitty-gritty of how much effort you put into delivering the data. Because I think, it's like this was hard work. We do hard things. And we want people to know that we did hard things, but what they really want to know is the outcome. They don't want to know the process of making the sausage. They just want the outcome, right? And so we spend way too much time when we have those moments in front of our decision makers. We spend way too much time on the process and how we got there. And we need to be able to wrap that into a story that says, here's the problem, here's maybe the method I use to solve the problem simply, and then here's the outcome, and this is why it's beneficial to you, to us, and how it can move our organization forward. That's what they want to hear. And then so you get to the good stuff right up front. And then if they want details about the process and how you got there and want to look at all your data, then you dip into it. But we lose people at the very beginning when we delve too much into the process. And so that's definitely one of the things that I coach just, the people that work with me and in whatever aspect, either in my corporate environment or with my coaching, it's you have to be able to frame the data in such a way that it resonates, it captures, and then you move on because we don't want an hour of talking about the data in the process. So being better storytellers is hugely important.
You're absolutely right about that, Melanie. I remember when I first started giving presentations, I didn't even think about storytelling, but the longer I've been in this, I recognize how important it is. And I think a lot of us technical people just think that if we find it interesting, other people will find it interesting too. But no, there's a reason you're the engineer and they're not.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So for the people who are watching or listening to our conversation, Melanie, and
Mhm.
they see the benefit of improving with communicating, especially if they're technical people communicating with non-technical people, what's the first thing that they should focus on in getting better at it?
And getting better at it, the first thing. Well, I think it's you really need to understand the material intimately. Because once you do that, all these other things become a whole lot easier. And so I think that that's step one is really understanding the material that you're presenting better than anybody else. That should be the goal and objective. And then it's practice. And then it's, like we talked about, don't put a whole lot of stuff on your slides or in your talking. Not every presentation has slides that go with it, but you need to tell stories and use the data to support the story that you're telling.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. And, I think a lot of times us technical people, we think that speaking in front of others is someone else's job. We will be the ones that will generate the data, and we're fine with passing that along to somebody else to present it to other people. But I'm a big fan of, especially, I mean, I built this whole platform with the idea that the technical people really should be the ones who are disseminating that information because they know it the best. I mean, it went back to your first point of knowing the material well. Because you have that background, you're obviously going to be the one who's best suited to know that material as opposed to someone else. I mean, and then ultimately it's easier to give those technical people the tools to get better at communicating as opposed to asking someone who's non-technical to learn what these technical people know and speak about it in a competent way. It's really difficult for them to do, I would think.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we definitely are missing some opportunities if we're not representing our own data and information. I mean, how many tech giant or, companies do we have CFOs at the head of them and they're not doing real well from a technical standpoint. And they're at the top of these companies because they're the ones out there in front talking. And so we need to be able to get in front and tell our stories with the data that we're generating, so that we can make sure that, as engineers, that we're doing our due diligence and we're living up to the service that we're supposed to be doing in the discipline.
Yeah, last year I was at a conference, another conference, and there was a business development person giving a presentation, and there was mostly engineers in the audience. After the presentation, this poor guy got a whole bunch of technical questions that he could not answer. So it was just, he was sweating bullets. I felt really bad for him. But luckily, there were two engineers from his company in the audience, and they answered the questions from their seats. The room was small enough that we could hear them answering the questions. And
Hmm.
I just remember thinking to myself, why didn't one of them give the presentation? I mean, it's
Right.
mostly engineers in the audience. Of course, they're going to have technical questions. They're not going to be asking about business. But yet here, these engineers are comfortably seated next to me, not having the responsibility of giving these presentations. But I mean, ultimately, they're the ones that would be best suited, especially for who the audience was. So
Complete.
yeah, so for the people who are watching and listening to this conversation, Melanie, I'm sure they got a lot from it. So thank you for being a guest. How can people get in touch with you?
The best way to find me is on LinkedIn. I'm there all the time. So Melanie Myles, or Arctic Butterfly Coaching, type any one of those into the search bar there and you'll find me. And so, yeah, definitely follow me. And I'm always putting out information on leadership, women in STEM, tips about data and how to present it. So, yeah, that's the best place to get me now.
Excellent. Well, everyone, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Melanie.
Thanks, Neil.